Good morning and happy Thankful Thursday. Welcome to our sixth Michigan Women's Commission Pathway to High Paying Careers Roundtable. The Michigan Women's Commission, by statute, is to improve the lives of Michigan women. With that, we as a commission focus on gathering information from the women of Michigan to identify challenges that we as women face, take action to address those challenges, and then ultimately make policy recommendations to enable sustained change. Michigan women told us, and the data from 2024 also shows us. So, the data in the 2024 Women in the Michigan Workforce Report shows that gaining knowledge and providing pathways to high paying jobs and careers are a priority. With that, we launched our first roundtable in 2023 with Governor Whitmer at Accenture in Detroit, highlighting their IT registered apprenticeship program. Since that very first one, we've held 5 additional roundtables that included skilled trades, that included small business and entrepreneurship opportunities for women. And our last one in Battle Creek focused on corporate initiatives. Our goal is to promote pathways to women and to educate employers about the unique challenges that women face to participate fully in the economy and in our workforce. Due to the overwhelming response when we had the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Roundtable, we are continuing that conversation today with a focus on access to capital for small business owners and entrepreneurs. I'm a data person. 49% of small businesses in the US are started by women, but women only receive 2% of the available capital. And it wasn't until 1974 that women could get a credit card without a male cosigner. And it wasn't until 1988 before a woman could take out a business loan without a male cosigner. Well, we've come a long way since then, and we still have a long way to travel. I will turn it over now to my fellow commissioner and small business owner, Charity Dean, to introduce the panel of dynamic leaders in this space who can tell us how Michigan women may access the capital that they need. Charity?
Thank you, Commissioner Joshua. I am so excited to be here. As I am Charity Dean, the president and CEO of the Michigan Black Business Alliance. I'm also a small business owner myself. I own a coffee shop called Rosa in the city of Detroit. We have 2 locations, and I'm proud to be a Michigan Women's Commissioner. So thank you so much, Doctor, for that opening. And I'm really excited about this conversation. I participated in the panel before, and there's so much to discuss as it relates to women as entrepreneurs and women entrepreneurs being able to access the resources that they need in order to succeed. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to have our panelists jump on one at a time. We'll start with Carolyn, Tasha, then Dawn. And first, I want you to introduce yourself as who are you? Tell us what you do, but also tell us what motivated you to play in this space with women and underserved populations as it relates to entrepreneurship. So we'll start with my colleague in the work, Ms. Carolyn. Uh-oh, I think we need to unmute you for just a second. It's okay.
Thank you, Charity. Thank you, Michigan Women's Commission, for the good work that you do. I'm Carolyn Casson. I'm the president and CEO of Michigan Women Forward. We invest disproportionately in women and people of color in the state of Michigan, so that we can level the playing field for all of us. I also have a venture fund, Bell Michigan Impact Fund, where we invest also only in women-owned and women-led businesses. I'm motivated by leaving this world a better place. I think of it as trying to prepare us for 2045, when Michigan, like the rest of the United States, will become a majority minority state. And we are not ready here. We are so disproportionately do not look like the country that we live in. We need to see more women in that own businesses, more women at the head of corporations, and we need to change how we invest, which is what gets me up every single morning. So thanks for having me here.
Thank you, Carolyn. And I love what you say, and I'm sure we're going to come back to it when you talked about the mission of Michigan Women Forward, investing disproportionately. And you said that intentionally and unafraid. So
Right.
I love that. Tasha, please introduce yourself. Tell us what you do and what motivated you to play in this space.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me. Tasha Tabron. I am a part of the Kresge Foundation. We are a $4 billion foundation that supports nonprofit organizations, but particularly in my part of the organization, which I'm the director of originations, one of the few people who actually lend money at a giving organization. And I'm a native of Detroit. A hometown is Detroit. And I've worked in the city of Detroit for a couple of decades, and it's been around supporting businesses, specifically at this moment in time, businesses that are started by women who are developers who work in the real estate space. So our organization funds funders, organizations like Carolyn Casson's organization, other alternative lending sources of capital come from our organization. And what else can I tell you? So around the question around motivation, when I started my career early on in banking, it's a male-dominated space, commercial lending, community lending, all of it a male-dominated space, and especially in the state. So wanted to make sure that women are represented in real estate, women are represented in the development space was a motivation of mine, and continues to be something that I work towards every day when I work on funding businesses in the city and across the state. Good to see everyone. Looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And John, last but definitely not least, please come ahead and Tasha, you can stay on. You can keep your camera on. Don, we're going to have you come on and introduce yourself and tell us what motivates you in this space.
Thank you, Charity. It is indeed my pleasure to be on this panel with these particular women because of the work that they're doing. Carolyn, I've been following you for quite some time. Thank you for leading the way. And Tasha, I've heard about you and you've been on my list, so it's good to be on this call with you. I spend my time in two spaces and they overlap significantly. One is helping scalable businesses understand their milestones. One of the things we learn, it takes a lot of milestones to reach or to grow a business. And that's hard. Entrepreneurs have a ton of things to do. And so sometimes understanding what are the key milestones to grow the business is difficult. And that's where we come in, really trying to help them understand how do you grow the business? And then how does that align with capital, which is extremely important. The other piece, which I love dearly, is the angel investing space. I truly believe if we have more allocators that are diverse, particularly women, then we will have more funding available for women. And a lot of women do not know that they could be angel investors. So I spend a lot of my time raising awareness and helping them on their journey so that they can invest more money in this space. So what motivates me? Options, helping people create options. And one of the things that we know is that entrepreneurship is a pathway to wealth building. If you take a look at the top 400 richest people in America, the top 15 are all entrepreneurs or legacy of entrepreneurs. So we know that entrepreneurship is that pathway. So how do we make sure that there are more women who are able to build businesses, sustainable businesses, businesses that would grow? And I think that's what wakes me up every day. How do we help create those options?
I love that. There's something very powerful about being able to choose and having options. So thank you so much for that, Dawn. You know, it is February 6th, 2025, and I don't think we could have anticipated that the idea that women who make up 50% of the population, either, that them accessing capital could be a controversial thing, or that access for women, we talked about, I heard some of you talk about, more women being able to be in position could be a controversial thing, but here we are. Why do women entrepreneurs receive so little capital? And we talked a little bit about it in the intros, but I want to understand it and dig deep. And I think I'll start here with you, Carolyn. Why so little capital? And then what are you doing in your work to change it? And then Dawn, you talked a little bit about angel investing, right? And so what does that look like? What are the numbers for women in VC? And then Tasha, I'm going to ask you the same question, but from the lens of women in real estate and real estate development. So we'll start with you, Carol, go to Dawn, and then Tasha.
We didn't set up this system. This system was set up hundreds of years ago when the world was a very different place. It was run by people who didn't look like us, who we didn't have the opportunity to be educated. We didn't have the opportunity to participate in the economy, but all that has changed. The system that has been set up for investing in companies in the United States is this I don't know, cockamamie system. That's a nice word to say. That's okay.
We'll
System where you pick 10 people to bet on, and you start with the assumption that 8 of them are going to fail and crash and burn. One of them will make it, but only one will make enough money to pay us all back for all the things we've invested in. No woman would set up a system like that. You don't bet on 8 people to fail. You bet on everyone to win. We know how to do that. And so what I do every day is to try to change the system, create what I call an alternative universe, where we bet on 100% of every person who walks in the door that they are going to win. And we teach them how to do that. And we make sure that they have the skills and the education and the support that they need, so that we kind of upend this system and replace it within the next 20 years. And I'm counting on all of you guys to help me do this, because this is hard work. It is hard work to upend a system that's been around for a very, very, very long time.
I love that, Carolyn. And I will say, I mean, this is the work, at the Michigan Black Business Alliance, we partner with Michigan Women Forward. We're sending our members there for funding, and to be able to have a partner that is actually doing that work intentionally with the resources. So you talked a little bit about technical assistance resources too. And so that's really, really important when you're betting on everyone to win. Dawn, talk to us about this angel investor space and what that looks like for women.
Yeah, so the good news is the numbers have been increasing on the number of women who are becoming angel investors. And I think that's a lot of the work. Angel Capital Association, has been pushing that envelope as well. So that number is probably, you see it in different numbers, but probably around 40%. We've gotten, which have increased. Maybe 3 years ago, it was closer to that 25, 30%. So we are going in the right direction, which means that there's a higher probability of more women receiving funding. So that's good news. We continue to do that work. We continue to raise the awareness. We just started a class with the Center for Black Entrepreneurship
Right.
for HBC alum. It kicked off yesterday.
Oh, that's
The
awesome.
majority of people, I know, we were so excited. The majority of people in that class are women. So we can take them through a 3-month journey of, what does it look like to be an angel investor? How do you find deals? How do you do due diligence? Because there's a professionalism
Yeah.
around angel investing. And we want to make sure that people walk in with that knowledge, because that's a piece that we are often missing, as well as that knowledge, that networking, on the other side. So we want to make sure that they have the tools and the confidence that they need. Because believe it or not, oftentimes women have been told to be very risk adverse,
Yes.
right? We will give money away in a minute, because we want to help everybody. But when it comes to that investing piece, we're a little bit more cautious. And because of that, we're looking for certain information. We may second guess ourselves. So we're trying to help them understand the space and build out a portfolio, because that's the other piece. It's important to build out a portfolio of companies. But like Carolyn, I learned this from the younger generation. I want to double click on what you said, about we got to change the framework.
Yeah.
That's another piece. So that's some of the things we're thinking about now. What framework works better for us, even within the angel investing space?
Yeah. I think that's really critical. Part of, this conversation is about access to capital, but if we're not on the decision-making side of that, then we will continue to see some of the statistics. So I appreciate you talking about the increase in women that are actually doing the investing. What about in real estate? So we think about, real estate development and then accessing capital in real estate that's complex. And a lot of times it involves having understanding of governmental programs that are there to help with development. Tasha, talk a little bit about what you've seen and the ways that you're helping women access capital for real estate development.
Thank you. And so much has already been said between the other panelists about what precludes women from being in some of these industries. A lot of it has to do with risk. A lot of it has to do with thinking about the long-term success of where their projects will be. And so I would say why women access little capital in the real estate space is a big part of just generational wealth, right? When you think about the statistics that Tracy gave us earlier about when women entered the marketplace, when they became big players in this space, it was, hundreds of years, after men had already entered the space and done this work. And so the access to them to enter an industry that's very capital intensive, similar to what Dawn sees in her space, precludes women from thinking about that unless they have some of that family resources to begin. If you start a project in any particular city, it requires a significant amount of equity, a significant amount of dollars that you start, and you may not see the benefits of those dollars for several years. So who has the ability to say, I'm going to raise my hand, put in $1 million in capital to start this project that I want to do? Even if it's mission minded, affordable housing that you want to do, you want to build a commercial space for a new business. Charity, you've been in the space of building a lifestyle business in a neighborhood. It's going to be 5, 6, 7, 10 years even before you see the benefits from a capital perspective from that dollar, which means if you want to do your next project, your $1 million is locked into that project. If you want to do your next project, those $2 million is locked in those two projects for years and years to come. So it's a very capital intensive prospect for women to enter in. So the thing that we saw with all of the technical assistant programs that we had started over time to make sure that women can enter the work and grow into real estate in the city of Detroit, particularly, it was great, but we didn't have a capital solution for how you start putting your first dollar into a project. Recently in 2022, we launched the Kresge Foundation, put in a large investment into a community development financial institution called Invest Detroit for a program called EBIARA. It was our first test case on figuring out how to replicate equity for a business. And really, we wanted to grow the enterprise, not just the project, but like the enterprise. How do we make women and people of color stronger in the space by putting in their first 5% into a project, and then allowing them to take that to leverage it to get money into their project for senior loan dollars from a bank or for
Yeah.
mezzanine dollars from other partners. This was the starting point, and we've always worked on other parts of the capital stack for a project, but this was getting at the root of this question of like, how do you enter? And so the results of that has been we've worked with 10 new firms. 20% of those firms, 2 of those firms are led by women. I know that sounds low, but when you think about what it looks like across the industry, that 2% of available capital to women, we're blowing up the roof off of making sure that we have more women that enter the real estate space. So that's one example, but there's other things that we've done. But the biggest thing is really trying to figure out how do we solve for this capital intensive industry that precludes women from getting into the space.
That's huge, and I appreciate you bringing up Riviera as a specific example of something kind of innovative to deal with this issue. So I'm going to go back to Dawn and Carolyn here and ask for a specific example, and I'm going to talk a little bit about something you said, I think, Carolyn, which is that the system is kind of set up where you bet and you just hope somebody wins, but there's something to be said about the opportunity to fail. You like being able to have the capital to have the opportunity to fail. That's where creativity comes in, and that's where solutions really matter. When you don't have the opportunity to fail, there's a lot of pressure on you to deliver the first time around. What are some creative things that you may have seen maybe in your respective organizations or out there that give women the opportunity to fail as it relates to capital in their small business? And maybe there isn't nothing, maybe there isn't anything.
Well,
to figure it out,
I
but-
love this because a lot of it is, it speaks to me because I didn't have the luxury to fail. I didn't have that, I had no family money. I
Yeah.
had no friend money. I didn't know anybody who could, I didn't have any myself. So failing wasn't an option for me. And, what I love about Detroit so much is the fact that, and the whole state of Michigan, we are a state that gets that's the lot for most of us. So let's don't set up a system that requires you kind of to fail. Let's figure out and so we do all kinds of things like giving away resources, giving away support and help. And I think that's my job. My job is to do that every day, to find out what people really need and then supply them with that kind of support. And frankly, yeah, I'll just say it out loud because, I don't care anymore.
We're all family here. We're all family here.
We have to overinvest.
Yes.
We have to give money, we have to give resources, and we have to give an opportunity to every single person that is willing to do the work and not fail. Because I don't believe actually that 80% of the people would fail if they were given the kind of help that they need. That's why this posse of women that you lead with the Women's Commission is important in Michigan. We have to stick together. We have to help each other. We have to support each other, and we have to make sure that when Dawn can't help, I jump in.
Yep.
And I can't help, Tasha jumps in. We're all in this together.
I love that. And I think that's really important. Sometimes it's the under-resource that causes the failing, not the idea or the thing itself. Dawn, what's your perspective here?
Yeah, same. One of the things I did in my previous role when I was at Techtown Detroit is we partnered with the Gilbert Family Foundation, and James Fegan was there at the time. And one of the things we put together was something we call the Tech Startup Fund, MVP. It wasn't specifically to women, but obviously, we did attract, a number of women through that program as well. But what I loved about it, we were the family and friends, right? And we said, okay, what would happen if we give $15,000 for people to build the ugly thing, the MVP, the minimum viable product? Um, let's build. We were more concerned about how to test that to see what it would do and giving them that room to fail. We were more interested in the stories. Did you have a difficult time finding vendors? Did you have a difficult time understanding the milestone? Like, we were more interested in the stories, and that's how we reported it, which was extremely helpful to get insight on where were the gaps in the ecosystem. And that was really important. And we saw that program is still going on, but that work, I think, was highly successful. We were able to help some companies that you may have heard of, like Cirque Nova, with Crystal Brown. We were able to help her at a very critical part, her growth early on, where that $15,000 was able, for her to test some things and then move on. And now she's able, to raise much more money. So I think more programs or more opportunities for that. And then also, we cannot underestimate having the space to talk about it, right?
Yeah.
Particularly for women and underrepresented founders, where we were taught you have one shot, so you better do it well, because you may not get another shot. That is counter to failing, right? Tech, I deal with a lot of tech businesses. Tech is counter to failing. Tech is about iteration.
Yes.
Go try it, iterate. So we got to make sure that we're having those conversations so that people have that space to talk about it and have the space to iterate and the funding and resources to iterate so that they can get to that solution.
I love that. So I've got two more questions before we close out here. And I'm thinking about anyone that's maybe watching or participating, and they want to grow their business, right? So I talk about, I am a small business owner. I own my own cafe. And this year, or the end of last year, I got my first business loan. So I kind of, it was self-funded to start. And last year we got our first loan. And I have so many lessons that I learned during this process. Even though I run the Black Business Alliance, it's a different beast when you become the small business owner. And 70% of our members are women, right? And so women are Black women specifically is a fast growing demographic when it comes to entrepreneurship. So what advice do you have for women they're already small business owners, but they are desperately under resourced and probably need capital, or maybe they have capital but they don't have enough? What do you say to the small business owner? Maybe even it's someone that wants to get into real estate development. So I'm going to ask all of you to give me, I'm not going to give you a time, but shortly, because we got a big question coming up next. What, is one piece of advice that you would give an entrepreneur that is in need of capital for their business? I'll start with you, Dawn, go to Tasha, and then Carolyn.
Wow, that's a very nuanced question. But I will say there are two things that come to mind that I see. One, find your community. Now, there's a lot of peer-to-peer learnings that can accelerate your own growth. Your peers also have, tried some things, or they have found other resources. So peer-to-peer is definitely critical. This one is a little more kind of difficult because it goes on both sides. And what it is focus on the business growth. Sometimes people focus on the funding solely, and funding is definitely needed, no doubt. We know that hands down. There are times where we ask business owners, and women, what do you need? How much do you need, and for what? That often brings some silence, right? Because we know we need money. We know that. But understanding how you're going to grow, what you need, how much you need, is critical. If you talk to any funder and they ask you that question, you want to have an answer, and a good answer. That helps you understand your milestones and what you need to do, but also helps you align milestones with the right money. Sometimes people are going to get money at the wrong places. at the wrong time. It doesn't align with what they do. So we want to make sure we're aligning our milestones with the right money, and all money is not good money.
Yes.
So we want to understand, what do we need and where are the best places to get it. That takes a little bit of work before you go out to get the money. And that's something that I think we can do a much better job at.
Yeah, I love that. I think, Tasha, you're next. What advice do you have?
Ditto to everything Dawn just said. Being on the other side of the table as a funder, and looking at business plans and trying to understand where you're trying to take your business, so we can make the decision about how to support it with resources. I would add to that, to help that, that process, is to know your market, right? No matter what kind of product you're providing or service that you're providing, like, know what your competition is doing, understand what your competition is, and do your research. Like, just, you got to get into you have to get out of the mindset of the thing that you want to do, that you're very passionate about. We hear our entrepreneurs that come to us, they have a passion about what they want to do. They're really focused on that. Similar to what Dawn is saying, like, really focused on that. But when you ask a question about business, it's a very, very different kind of context and a part of the brain that you got to activate at that point, right? And so, if it's not your space, it's not something that you understand that well, like, this is where you go to a Carolyn and have them help you figure this out, because that's what's going to be the difference maker in being able to get you closer to the capital that you need and the growth that you want to see for your business. Is like, understand what else is happening. Landing a coffee shop where you landed it, Charity, meant that you had to understand, like, how many people are going to walk through the door and buy a cup of tea, right? And so, so your numbers have to be based on something. And I would just strongly, strongly, strongly recommend, especially in the time of AI, you could actually just start typing stuff in, and you can figure out what it looks like to sustain what you're trying to grow in your space.
I love that, Tasha. You are absolutely right. We're going to have to exercise muscles that we may not have exercised before, in order to be able to get the funding you need. You've got to know your numbers. You got to know why, because it also helps you be creative to be able to solve for some of the other things. Carolyn, what's your advice?
So my advice is based on my own failings, kind of where I started and the businesses that I started. And I was afraid. I thought you had to pretend to know everything. You had to act and look like you knew the answers when you didn't know them. And so I never asked anybody for help. I never asked anybody to explain something to me. I stayed up late at night and figured out everything I could figure out. And it really wasn't until I figured out how the system worked that I became brave enough to ask my girlfriends, my mentors, the people around me, the Tashas, the Charities, the Dawns, all of you out there, to please help me. I don't really know how to do this. If you want to start a business, figure out what you don't know first, so you don't have to fail along the way. And ask somebody who's trustworthy, and ask somebody to help you. Ask for capital last, not first. Because if you ask for capital, I do have to dig in, and I have to ask you, because it's either my capital, my personal money, and or the money of the organization that I run. And I want you to have it, but I've got to grill you. And so, let me be your friend and your colleague first, and let me teach you. And then you'll know all the answers. So, and you don't have to get it from me, get it from whoever you trust and you believe in. And we have set up a wonderful network in this state of people that you can trust. So, sorry, I don't mean to go on.
Oh, I love that. You guys gave some great advice. I think one of the most courageous things we can do in this life is to ask for help. That cuts across all categories. And so thank you for that. And it is important to do the work first sometimes. A lot of times resources follow, sometimes, doing the work, improving the model. So we at the Michigan Women's Commission, and I love being a women's commissioner, because we get to have conversations like this that actually turn into policy. Pre-pandemic, we did lots of research with women around the state around needs. Childcare was one of the biggest ones, and we were able to work to get some comprehensive childcare help passed through the legislature with the governor's office. I'm at the Tri-Share program. So I love being a commissioner because tangible policy comes out of the conversations like this. So my question to the three of you is that if you had a magic wand, what are one or two issues or one or two policies that the state can implement to help remove some of the barriers that we talked about today? And I want you to think creatively, think boldly. It could be a new program to start. It could be a policy to change. It could be money in the budget for X. But I really want to hear from you. You guys are in the field. You got a magic wand. What do we need to do? We'll start with you, Tasha, go to Carolyn, and then Dawn.
Thank you for starting with me, because I think one of these women would have probably grabbed my idea and I wouldn't have had another one. So, I wanted to say one thing that I didn't say earlier is that I am a business owner. My family owns a business, and the reason I'm smiling on the side is my babies are home today and they're listening to this, and I want them to walk away with the same advice about when they, either take over the business or grow the business that you guys are hearing today. So, if I had a magic wand, I would say, we talked about opportunity. I want women to get the opportunity to work with the state of Michigan and make it easier for them to do so. Right? Procurement is a major piece of the pie for women to grow their businesses. And one of the things that I would say is in my space, there's there's MISHDA, the housing department, there's MEDC, which is the Economic Development Corporation, there's LEO that you guys are more connected to as well on the workforce side. Like a lot of the things I see with women who are looking to do development, those three organizations have resources individually and sitting embedded inside of them. And if there was some way to make it easier for those resources to talk to each other, that they have aligned applications or what have you, so that and the capital stack for a project, like you'll see, as you talked about, government resources stacked on top of each other. We do everything we can. I usually say duct tape and glue, trying to get these projects done. And it requires that we take resources from and subsidies from different places. So but projects get slowed down when they're trying to get something out of MBDC. You got to be really sophisticated to try to figure this out and put these capital sources together. And if you don't have a partner like a Michigan Women's Forward or Invest Your Trade to do this for you, it's complex. It's really hard to do. So I want to see reform within like government structures that make it as easy to apply for money like it is to pay for a latte. Like you can tap and your latte is paid for. I want to see similar kind of resources that make it more streamlined to get access to those dollars and access to opportunities to work with the state. Like even the same thing, like how do I figure out how to procure an opportunity to do work with the state of Michigan? How do we streamline that? And now I'm going to shout out to Charity, because this is what they're doing, what she's doing and leading at the local level in the city of Detroit. She is starting to streamline processes that, took 50 days, to get an answer out of the city and turn that into 10 days. And that money, time is money, and she's figuring out how to save our entrepreneurs in the city of Detroit a lot of time. So if we can figure that same thing out at different levels at the state, I would love it.
You're singing my song there. So government efficiency can save money. And the beautiful thing about equity, right? If we do it for the least of these, right? So that the idea is that you're saying, hey, let's make it easier for women to access opportunities. When you do it for the least of these, everyone benefits. So thank you for that. Who did I say?
I want to jump in because Tasha, I had a list and that was on it. So thank you, Tasha, for articulating that. That's great. Mine is about money. Frankly, the state of Michigan needs to set up a first rung of the ladder fund. We don't have to say women and people of color, because you don't have to say that out loud, because that's who wants and needs to get on the first rung of the ladder, of the capital ladder. And so start this fund, use the resources, you know, I'll help you figure out where to get the money from if you want me to, but I think we can get this money. We will match it. We're not afraid. We will collectively as women and people in the community development space, we will figure out how to match it, but put some money into a permanent fund that until we get this solved, you know, can go away in 20 years or something. But right now, let's have a set of state resources that we can count on to invest in women-owned and people of color-owned businesses.
Okay, my song is still being sung. I love that, Carolyn. It is so important, especially as we think about, I mean, there's so many policies that are coming out at every level of government, but even at the state, you know, small businesses are heavily regulated. How might we be able to supplement so that they can compete? And so, you know, a first source fund, whatever we want to call it, I love that. I've added that to the list. Dawn, you're up. What's your magic wand idea?
Yeah, I'm gonna take some liberties since I'm the last person and
Yeah.
they took some of mine. I would build on, you know, what Tasha says. I actually used the governor's one of her sayings, you know, build the darn roads, build the darn pathways.
Yes.
And with those pathways will require the funding, the resources, the vision, the intentional capital stacking, because we know where people need to go. There is some overlap and duplication in programming. What happens if we're able to coordinate that in a way a little bit more intentional, where people can go through, you know, the programming and access the capital they need coming out of some of those programming. So that's one. And in that, you have foundations, you have corporates, so people can also get to what we're really trying to do is get to that customer and
Right.
tech companies, right? So we can start partnering with those corporations. What problems do they have? And how do we solve them, you know, with the talent that we have? And if you can get folks customers, the rest of it will work out, right? You know, so that is what we're trying to get to, is really revenue and how do we grow this thing? So that vision, intentional capital stacking, but also that corporate piece and foundation piece. The other one, my magic wand in my space, angel credits. You know, we tried it in 2008, 2009. At that time, it was only for 1 year. There was a lot of other things happening, you know, during that time, including financial crises. All of the credits in Michigan at that time were removed, tax credits, most of them. So I think it's time for us to revisit that. Some of our neighboring states, you know, have figured out some things that work better. So we can look at the Ohio's, the Minnesotas, who both have angel credits, and just look at how we can restructure it where it works for everybody involved.
I love that. So we've got angel credits here. Build the, and you say jarred pathways. I was gonna say, damn, but you know, I'm thinking about intentional stacking, which goes right along with Carolyn's, you know, fund.
Right.
And it absolutely goes along with Tasha's elimination of barriers in government. So
Could you also add the having policymakers to advise her? I mean, let her, I think when small business, you know, talks to the governor, they're not who we're talking about. And so you know, this group of people need an advisor or somebody. So one of you have got to go help.
I mean,
So,
let me ask you this just really quickly, and I know we're almost at time, so for me to turn it back over to Dr. Joshua, but are you thinking of like a small business czar or a small business entity space in the governor's office?
when the industry says small business, they think of 400,000.
Yeah.
They don't
Yeah.
think of us.
Right.
So
Micro business, right.
we got something through the legislature last year that sets up an office of micro business.
Yes. Yes.
But it's not going to be staffed by anybody. It has no money. It
Yep.
has no, you know, so just fund it just a little and find somebody to lead it so
Yep.
that it stays, you know, it stays in the front and center.
I agree 100%. Very familiar with that legislation, and I added it to the list. I think we've got some amazing opportunities here. to do this work. I could talk about this all day, so I'm going to stop myself. And I'm really looking forward to just this conversation, and I'm excited that we're covering this as commissioners. We're going to have another pathway, and we're going to talk about access to labor for small business and micro business. So this is just really, really great. I am now going to turn it over to my fellow commissioner, Dr. Tracy, to wrap up this amazing conversation. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And thank you to each of our panelists. My fellow Commissioner Charity Dean, who's President and CEO of the Michigan Black Business and who is also an entrepreneur and business owner. Carolyn Casson, President and CEO of the Michigan Women Forward. Tasha Tabron, with the Kresge Foundation, Director of Originations, and Dr. Dawn Betts, CEO of Milestone Growth Capital Institute. Thanks to each of you. What a robust conversation and so needed. The Michigan Women's Commission will provide from today's discussion resources on our website. So please follow us on our web page. And then stay tuned for future roundtables hosted by the Michigan Women's Commission and the Financial Freedom Committee. I am Dr. Tracy Joshua, and I am a proud commissioner and chair of the Financial Freedom Committee, where we drive for solutions. We drive for education and understanding and solutions to the challenges that women face across our state. So our focus and discussion today, pathways to high-paying jobs and careers as entrepreneurs, and we focus today on capital and access to capital for women. This is a strong focus for our governor. And the Michigan Women's Commission is so pleased that she asked us to have these conversations and to share the feedback with her from our roundtables. In addition, the governor just signed a bipartisan bill establishing an innovation fund and R&D tax credits to unleash entrepreneurship, to lower costs for businesses, and to create jobs in Michigan. Thank you for all who have joined us today. Thanks for your attention to women's entrepreneurship and small business ownership. Again, as I said, stay tuned, more is coming. And as we all know, and as our governor often says, when the women of Michigan thrive, our communities thrive. And then I like what was said earlier today. Make those darn pathways happen. Have a great day. Have a thankful Thursday. Thank you.